county. The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Hi, and welcome to Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. Politically Speaking is a program that gives you all the information you want with all of the political people in Grey Bruce. My guest today is Alex Ruff, the MP for Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound, and he is in Ottawa, in his office in Ottawa, and I'm here in my office in Owen Sound. Alex, welcome. Good to have you here.
Thanks for having me again, David.
Now, Alex, if I understand it, the House is almost finished and will be not meeting again until the fall. Is that correct?
Yeah, again, we get into the semantics of the terminology. We've actually, the House hasn't been sitting. The special committee's been sitting. We've only sat 9 times that Parliament's actually sat, including last Wednesday when it sat briefly for all of 12 minutes. And it's sitting again for 4 hours this afternoon. Then there will be 4 accountability, 2 in July and 2 August, and then we're not back until the 21st of September. But the special committee on COVID-19, the final 2 sittings are today and tomorrow. So I'm actually one of my other apparatuses there remotely. I don't have a speaking part today. I was physically sitting both Monday and Tuesday in the House as part of the special committee.
So it's we'll go without a lot of news out of Ottawa for the next couple of months. I did notice this morning on CBC on the CBC webpage that the NDP will support the government financial bill, so the government won't fall. But obviously, that's caused a bit of what shall I say, conversation among members of the House.
Yeah, well, I'm actually I haven't seen that article. I know the debate is 4 hours this afternoon to talk about $87 billion. That's where some of the criticism has been. It's 4 hours is not a lot of time to effectively go through $87 billion of supplementary spending. Although I will note that when I asked the Minister of Veterans Affairs yesterday, there is approximately $90 million of that extra spending going to Veterans Affairs, which I'm happy to hear and see. But who knows, all the parties may actually endorse it or may not. Again, that's the purpose of actually having a debate and to fully understand where that funding is being allocated and the reason why, so all Canadians know it's transparency.
To be sure, Alex, and that has been one of the ongoing criticisms of the government that the opposition has brought to the fore, that there hasn't been the level of transparency that has been expected. I did also note that it has been quite a while since we've seen any financial statement, quite a few months, and there is no plan to bring one forward for another few months, probably sometime in the fall.
Actually, that is the one news article that I did read on CBC this morning. The government and apparently the Prime Minister a couple hours ago during his daily press conference in front of his cottage is that they are going to provide a fiscal update on the 8th of July. So that'll be interesting. That update is coming, which will be welcome to all Canadians, and definitely, to better understand what our current financial house is, the state of the house, and where we're going forward for all Canadians, because it's definitely going to have an impact on economic recovery.
Absolutely. It's going to be a very interesting experience over the next few years, to be sure, as we see how the government navigates its way through what has been an unprecedented fiscal expenditure, and it'll, like I say, be a very interesting thing to watch. And I'm sure your party will keep the government on its toes.
Without a doubt, I'm sure all opposition party members will keep the government on its toes.
That's one of the realities of a minority government, is that the government kind of has to navigate difficult waters sometimes, because if one party in this case says nope, not gonna buy that, there's got to be some compromise, and we move forward from there.
We do.
Now, Alex, you're the leadership race comes up, and I see that things are beginning to be. Let's just say there's a debate coming up in the very near future in French, and that it's going to be a little different from our usual debates, in that I understand there'll be no live audience, but the four people who are running for the leadership of the Conservative Party will be presenting themselves to the members of the party, and that should also make for an interesting summer as well.
No, for sure. I mean, obviously, reheated up in the last couple of months with respect to the Conservative Party leadership race. And tonight, well, it's Wednesday when we're recording this. Obviously, it depends when it airs. But tonight is the French debate. Tomorrow will be the English debate. And it'll be interesting to see. I'm fascinated on tonight's debate in particular in French, because that has been some of the criticism, leveled at all four candidates. I know I've actually watched and participated in a couple of Aaron O'Toole's Zoom conferences with Quebecers, so in French. So I was actually pleasantly surprised. His French is far from perfect, but it's actually, he does have a very commanding understanding of the language, and his comprehension is quite good, and he speaks quite well. Does speak like an Anglophone. Peter, I like his accent whenever I've heard him speak, but I just haven't seen him in that more fluid situation. So it'll be interesting to see how he performs tonight. And then really the unknowns for tonight's debate is Leslyn Lewis and Derek Sloan. I know Leslyn's been taking training and taking in French, but I'm not aware of Derek having any ability in it. So it could be a somewhat, they'll be a lot quieter tonight, I'm assuming, than they will be in tomorrow night's debate in English.
Yes, that may be true, because one of the big questions is what will the party do in Quebec, and how well will the party do in Quebec, because the number of ridings and votes in Quebec is extremely significant, and the ability to speak, and more importantly, the ability to understand Quebec, in at least culturally and linguistically, is a huge advantage to any party that in this country. It's a significant piece of our political landscape. It's interesting that you should say that both Mr. O'Toole and Mr. McKay have English accents. I trust that will not be held against them. In my experience, I've had I speak a little bit of French, and I've had native Quebecois say to me, your accent is just so charming.
Yeah, no, the accent will be held against them. Not at all. In fact, I prefer listening to Anglophone speak French, because I can understand it a lot easier myself, just because the words don't get sort of mashed together quite as fluently. So therefore, it's easier for a non-native French speaker to an Anglophone speak. And it's the same way in the House. I mean, my comprehension is good enough that I don't need to leverage myself with the interpretation services all the time. But you do tend to have the headpiece in just to actually hear everybody, because the West Block, the House of Commons, is a very big room, and sound doesn't travel super well. Some of us, I seem to have no problem getting my voice to carry across the whole House of Commons when I speak, but there's some very soft-spoken speakers within the elected MPs, so you normally have to have the mic in anyway. And then when you're hearing some of the native Francophone speaking, I do need it in there sometimes, just because it can be very quick, and they're using some terminology that we just don't hear every day, or I haven't heard based on my really military French training, because again, our vocabulary focuses in on a very set group of words, whereas when you're speaking about all sorts of issues, you're always learning more. So it's good that way, and I'm enjoying it, and I'm glad I do have a fairly good grasp of French.
Yes, have you ever had to use your parade ground voice?
Well, I've used it a couple of times, especially when I'm making statements, and even yesterday, when I'm speaking I ask questions of Mr. Blair and Mr. McCauley. I tend to use my voice. I haven't had to use my real parade voice yet, and I doubt I ever will. I'm not a big believer in having to shout. I'm loud enough as it is in the first place.
That's quite okay, Alex. That's quite okay. Speaking of Minister Blair, the government brought in some new firearms legislation, and I wondered what your thoughts were on that particular piece of legislation.
Yeah, so I've made my opinion quite clear on this, going back is January, even back last year when we first heard grumblings that the government might consider using an order in council to bring in this and versus a normal debate in the House of Commons. So that's frustrating in the first place that they're doing this without actually bringing it forward. But my biggest shortfall and complaint about it is that they're not providing any evidence. This is a strictly, in my viewpoint, a partisan piece of legislation targeted to win over urban voters in our major urban centers without people understanding the issues. I've told countless Canadians right across the country, even when we talk about this, is that in the end, just provide the evidence. If the evidence is there, you will not get pushback from the firearms community. You will from some individuals. There's definitely individuals on all sides of the spectrum on this, but I've been getting lots of interesting complaints and emails and phone calls into the office from Canadians that don't own firearms at all, that find just the way that this was done very undemocratic and not the way that it should be done, because it is confiscating personal property. It's doing it in a very overnight fashion. And again, there's lots of people that are out thousands and thousands of dollars. The government has indicated that they will put in a buyback program, although I'm still kind of confused by that term. How do you buy something back that you never owned in the first place? However, in the end, there's companies, small businesses, a lot of them actually ex-veterans, ex-soldiers, that run gun stores across this country that are specifically targeted to the gun shooting community, sport shooters. And some of them are out $500,000 that they're sitting on in inventory that the manufacturer won't take back, that they're basically stuck on it until this legislation that they have to introduce, because it's money, it's taxpayers' money, so they have to bring that to the House. So they could do that when we get back in September. But again, are they going to pay fair market value, what they truly paid for it? And I mean, I've had constituents in Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound, even just 3 firearms alone, they're out over $10,000 with just 3 firearms, because it's just not when you're an active competitive sports shooter, there is so many extras, auxiliary, whether it's the sights, whether it's the bipods, whether it's just the grips. There's so much stuff that goes onto a firearm when you're trying to shoot specifically in a sports competition. And again, the statistics don't lie. Law-abiding firearms owners are the most vetted firearms owners in the country, the most vetted Canadians in the country, and they are actually responsible statistically for the fewest crimes in the country. So it's fascinating that they don't want to focus in on illegal gun smuggling coming in across the U.S. border, gangs, drugs, poverty. If you dump all that money in the upwards of $1 billion, this buyback program, strictly into those other aspects to go at the root causes, I just think it would be much more a much wiser investment in our taxpayers' money to actually help solve the problem.
Sure. And I think your point is well taken, that this is an issue that is urban in nature, and it's intended to resolve an urban problem, an urban issue, without regard for the rural community. And we will just have to wait and see how this plays out. But let's hope people will at least express their dissatisfaction, and you will represent that to the minister and to the relevant committee.
No, for sure. And I mean, the petition that was already, once this ban came out, within 48 hours, it was originally sponsored by Michelle Rempel Gardner. I don't know what the total is, but I mean, within 48 hours, it had already become the largest signed petition in Canadian history, I believe, right? So there was over 100,000 plus, I think eventually over 200,000. I'll try to dig it up here maybe during the break so I can get the current number of people that have signed that petition.
Well, not to worry, because you could even post that to Twitter, because we're not quite out of time, but we're getting on there, Alex. Yep. I was going to also ask you, the government relief programs that have been put into place have just been extended. The Prime Minister announced yesterday that the CERB benefit will go to the end of the summer. Have you had much feedback from people in the constituency about those programs?
Yeah, not so much on the CERB, David. We did get a few emails, obviously people hoping to see it extended. And again, it's not so much a hard timeline that the government's extended. The original timeline, I think, actually took the CERB into September, but it was capped at the 16 weeks. And they've now increased it by an additional 8 weeks. So if somebody did start collecting it effective, the 4th of March or 15th of March, whatever day it was effectively, I think it was the 4th of March, it would have expired on the 4th of July. So yeah, it does extend them to the end of the summer, but the program itself will actually run, I think, until the start of November for a combination of a maximum now of 24 weeks of the CERB. The biggest feedback that I've been getting, and it's been pretty consistent from day one, has been around the Canadian Emergency Business Account, the $40,000 loan, and then more recently the rent assistance program that they put in. So with the loan, when they first came out, the criteria was somewhat stringent, especially the wage ceiling made it very difficult for a lot of the small businesses to qualify. It was one of my first questions Easter weekend when I was in the House. They actually lowered it the following week from $50,000 down to $20,000 to qualify. And then on May the 4th, after much again pressure, sorry, not May the 4th, May the 19th, they made the announcement that they would make changes to allow sole proprietors, companies that pay themselves in dividends or that have contractors, that they would then qualify. Well, they announced that on May the 19th. I mean, I even thanked them in the House on May the 20th for making those changes. Those changes have yet to be implemented. They announced on Monday that they will be implemented this Friday, but specifically the issue with the personal bank account, if you run your business through a personal checking account versus a business or commercial account, which many businesses and especially farmers do, but even chiropractors, they do it the same way. I mean, I've just got boatloads of it. None of them are currently qualifying, and from my understanding, that change still is not included in that CEBA loan. Back to the rent assistance, the biggest, and there were some statistics that came out earlier this week, and I mean, I do acknowledge that the federal government had to work with all the provinces, but the fact that they made it applicable through the landlord, there's only been something like, I think, $39 million take up of that program out of over 2 or 3, I don't know how many billion dollars allocated. So the take up's been very small, and most of the landlords aren't interested in it because it means they lose 25%. And there's a lot of small businesses in the riding, including in the mall, in Owen Sound, that don't qualify, that need it desperately, that they've qualified for some of the other, but their business is down, in some cases 60%. And that's the other thing, the criteria in order to get it, you need to be, I think, 70% down. And if you're 65 or 68%, you can't qualify for it. So we've been pushing the government to A, amend it so the tenant can apply, and B, a sliding scale that maybe you don't get it all, but you can get part of it in order to qualify.
Now, will your office assist with applicants if they're having difficulty with some of these government benefit programs?
Yeah, especially at the start, we helped out a lot with the CERB and some of them. The CEBA and some of these programs, and even the rent assistance, that all goes through your financial institution or through CMHC, so there's not much we can do about that. But the CERB, very similar to EI applications. We can help with that. I will give Service Canada was very slow at initially with getting this sort of telehelp set up. We were very busy, but that seems to have been resolved, and they transferred a lot of it that you can apply through. In fact, I think the preference is to do it through CRA. It's actually working pretty smoothly. But for those either seniors or people that just have limited internet access, or have trouble getting through on the phone, we are capable of helping talk them through it, and even, sort of almost and make sure it's set up and working well. So we can definitely help out for those that are having trouble.
What about, I noticed that the government is going to be bringing in an up to $600 benefit for seniors, and that'll hit their wallets the first week of July. I think there's two levels. If you're on the supplement, you get the higher amount. If you're on the if you just get the old age pension, you get a lower amount.
Yeah, so it's $300 if you're on old age OAS, and you get an additional $200 if you're on GIS. If you get the guaranteed income supplement. So it is up to $500. Again, that's effective. It's supposed to roll in, as you said, the first week of July 6th. That is when that program is supposed to roll out. I just spent a lengthy conversation with a senior yesterday from the Wyerton area that is, again, disappointed because it was announced well over a month ago or so, and she went out and she got her car finally fixed. She didn't have figured, all right, we got some extra money, and now she's actually on overdraft in order to sort of buy her groceries because the money, she made the assumption the money was going to roll in within a few days or a couple of weeks of the announcement, and unfortunately it's taken a couple months before it rolls out.
Yes, that's often part of the situation, is that the messaging is incomplete, shall we say.
Yeah, if you're going to make the announcement, again, the government's done a great job of announcing all sorts of things, but the execution and the implementation has been delayed in almost every case, with the exception of the CERB. And it would make it a lot easier for Canadians if they had that included in the messaging right from the get-go, so that people aren't getting their expectations up sooner, because in some cases, the announcement's gone out at 11 o'clock or 11:15 by the Prime Minister. I haven't seen it. My staff haven't seen it. And the phone's ringing within 3 minutes of it being announced on television. So asking, how do I do this? Where is it? Where can I get it? So part of it is key in the messaging, just to manage everybody's expectations.
Well, it's interesting you should say that, Alex, because I have heard the very same kind of comment from people in actually it was the city manager here in Owen Sound who said the exact same thing, is that the government will announce something and they don't know anything about it. They've never been given any alert. They have no messaging. They have no information. And the staff actually sit and watch the government announcements so they know what's going on. I've also been told that's true at the health unit, is that same thing. So it's if there's a lesson to be learned here, it has to be, get the message out and get it out so that all the partners know what's going on.
No, without a doubt.
Now, what are your plans for the summer? Are you going to be involved in the leadership race with Aaron, working with Aaron O'Toole, or will you be doing the kind of, obviously the summer barbecue season is not going to happen, at least not yet.
No, I mean, I've been involved with Aaron's campaign. I mean, it's all being done virtually. There is no, it's through phone calls, it's through emails, it's through talking to people. Again, I'm not, I'm a big believer in the candidates having to, I've voiced my support for Aaron right from the early stages. As I've told you before, I've known Aaron for over 25 years, and I think he'd be a great leader of the Conservative Party, but even more importantly, a great Prime Minister. So there's really not a whole lot more to be done on that. That's all being done right now. The ballots are going to go out here in a few weeks. The start of July, they'll go out for those established members that had current memberships within the party. And then the sort of the newer members that were buying their membership just in the last couple of weeks of the deadline, they'll roll out a couple of weeks later. But by August 21st, all the ballots will have to be mailed into the party. They'll be counted ideally within a few days, and we'll have a new leader for the Conservative Party. So my focus this summer is getting out across the riding still. I just have to respect physical distancing and the health protocols. That's my message for everybody. Still follow the guidelines. Things are going to open up, but let's not get complacent as we move into the summer. We don't want a second wave to hit us, we just have to adjust. So I think there's lots of ways. I mean, I'm back. I'll be back later this week, back to the riding. In fact, I'm going to shoot a Canada Day message here with Rogers on Saturday morning. Monday, I'm out to one of the orchards to better understand how the temporary foreign workers and some of the challenges that you've been hearing in the news even as recent as today, that's dealing with that and making, but to understand how our orchards work very well in the Meaford area. And I continue to meet with small businesses and constituents to understand their issues, and we just got to respect that physical distance.
That's true. That's true of almost everyone. And let's hope that once we're finished, at least by the end of the summer, we'll be able to be back in the studio, and we won't be using Skype technology like we're using it now. But who knows? We could be in the very same place as we are, or a similar place come the fall, but we'll have to wait and see. So you will be back in the riding, and you will be keeping in touch with people, and you will be, I'm glad to hear you're talking about the foreign workers, because that's been an issue that, although it has been not an issue here in this riding, it certainly is down in Windsor-Essex. They've got a huge issue around COVID-19 and foreign workers, including deaths. So let's hope that there will be some investment in that area to try and make things better, because I know the foreign workers are an integral part of the production cycle across Southern Ontario.
No, without a doubt. I mean, everything's interrelated, and obviously there's no real simple answer to any one issue ever, and you got to make sure we're taking all the factors into consideration to make sure everybody's being safe. Because everybody's important. Every life is important. Right. Well, Alex, we're just about out of time, and I just wanted to let you know that I probably won't be talking to you again this season, but look forward to coming back in the fall and more conversation about what's happening in Ottawa and of course across the riding. And best wishes to you for a good summer, and happy Canada Day to you. Well, thanks, David, and a shout out to everybody and to all constituents. Keep your eyes open on my social media. Starting in July, I got a little competition, I guess you could say, almost like a car rally / something that can be done to allow constituents to get across the whole riding and be able to see things, and actually maybe even help attract small businesses. I won't leave any more details. I'll have a bit of an advertising campaign sort of going out to do this as an opportunity for people to get out and see the whole riding, and I'm hoping that that'll get a bit of an uptick. So again, thank you for the message to all constituents of Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound, or all your listeners, David. Happy Canada Day, stay safe, and thanks so much for having me. Thank you, Alex, and thank you, friends, for watching Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. My guest has been Alex Ruff, MP for Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound. We'll see you again.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
I've been dating someone for a little while now.
The first guy you date in 17 years is a fireman, just like that? You don't think that's weird?